Let's start with a quick overview. So first of all, I will give you a brief overview about EXXETA. This is my employer. And then we will go to the challenges when it comes using cloud. And also one big challenge, how you can manage costs when it comes to cloud. We then have a proposal, it's called Cloud Mentor. This is what we need, what we use internally and also have for customers. And I will show how this works. And afterwards, we will look at some accomplishments and next steps. So first of all, about EXXETA, it's a consulting and technology company founded in 2005. You see we have about 1,200 employees in different locations all over Germany, also nearshoring locations. And our main sectors where we are active is mobility, energy, the public, and the financial service part. So we also have an office in Frankfurt here. So about me, I'm at EXXETA, I'm a cloud fellow. So what is this? Basically, I'm a cloud architect at heart, and I'm responsible for the internal and external topic cloud. This means for standardization internally, but also for stuff that we do externally. And what I present today, the FinOps part, was one big part that started last year. And yeah, let's go. So when we talk about cloud, we need to look at some challenges that you might face. So when you start with cloud, a big thing is the upskilling of your team that you have. When you have an on-premise center and you go to cloud, the skilling part is pretty much very important. But still, if you have the skilling, it's a whole different game when it comes to operations, when it comes to the availability of technology. And also you have like technology that you can now get within seconds that you maybe could never get with an on-premise data center. And when it comes to cost, it's a bit specific. So maybe some of you who ever have read a cloud bill understand my pain. In 2025, it's still very hard to read a bill from a cloud provider and to make any sense about it, how this came around. If you don't know every service that's listed there, it's still a challenging task. So when it comes to the cloud challenges regarding cost, one is definitely the cost forecasting and the budgeting. Before you had like a data center that was on premise and you had a budget for a year, and then you could do with the budget what you could do. Maybe you also added some budget afterwards, but it was pretty clear how much it cost. When you go to cloud, if your business applications scale, probably your budget also scales up. And this is very challenging for some organizations. This is why cloud providers offer upfront paying and savings plans and stuff. But if you use those in a quite high manner, then you don't really have all of the advantages that cloud brings as you. A very big topic is the resource utilization and optimization. And what this means basically is that you order some virtual machine, but you don't need it. You don't need that kind of virtual machine. Maybe it's too big, it has too much RAM, too many CPUs or something. And in a lot of companies, at the point when you order those virtual machines for your project, actually nobody knows what to order. They just go for it and they make assumption, okay, let's order maybe this will work out. And in the end, you pay a lot of money. But it does not only come to, let's say, virtual machines, also for storage. If people forget data or data is never used, just stored, then this also costs a lot of money. Yeah, and the third point is the access management and governance. A lot of cloud providers bring a lot of tools for you that you can use. You can do a very good governance with the cloud. Say, okay, only this region, for example, only those services, those virtual machines. But it's very complicated in the end. You really have to know need to know what to do. And once when you start with cloud, this is maybe overwhelming for you, and you say, okay, whatever, let's go. We do cloud now. And then in the end, your teams have really a lot of rights and they can order almost anything, maybe the quantum computer service of AWS or something. So there's a lot that you cannot even imagine on the market or what they ever think about. So when we look at the cloud cost, there's a saying that up to 30% is basically waste. So 30% of your current cloud cost, you could save it in some way. Maybe this is wrong, maybe it's more, maybe it's less, but it's around this number. And when it comes how you manage this, there is a discipline that's called FinOps. And FinOps brings this financial aspect with DevOps, and it integrates it. So you look at your operations with a financial view. And this really establishes you the way that you can look at it and do not just order those services. You also look at it, how much it costs, if there is a different service level available for you, for example, that fits you better. And FinOps comes also with a centralized organization, with a lot of transparency. I will talk about this in the next slides. But first of all, who needs this typically? Well, if you have a large public cloud footprint, then this is something for you. Or if you have a heterogeneous setup in your accounts, if you only use virtual machines, this may be not really necessary. There may be other contract changes that may happen. But if you use a lot of services, you also have a lot of complicated service constructs, and this everything together is really a good ground where FinOps helps. So now let's look at the FinOps stuff. So as you can here see, I have two axes. The one is the effort for action on the x-axis, and the y-axis is the effect on the cost reduction. So when we start with it, with FinOps, we look at transparent cost tracking. Most of the time, our teams who use cloud, or even if they use on-premise cloud, they don't know what this costs. Most of the time, people just use it, but they never know really what the cost is. So giving them some transparency is really a key at the beginning. Then you can do some reviews and reports. You ask them, why is the cost so high? And they can report back. That's for sure a good way to start, but the effort rises for this one. And creating awareness, as FinOps proposes, is really a key, but it's really hard to establish. Because if you have a lot of teams in your company, then you need to put this skill to each team at some point. And if you really want to integrate it, you need a lot of manpower for it. So it's not that easy to achieve. Yeah, there are a lot of cloud tools available also from the cloud providers. You can use those. You can have budgets on your accounts. You can have advisors and stuff. But it's something I will talk about later. Then you can check the pricing model. For example, as I told you, you buy a savings plan or something, and the one that comes up is the integrated FinOps principles. So you really do this FinOps organization in a whole way and make sure that everything follows. And the one that I focus on is the optimize of the resource utilization. And we will look at this right now. So basically, when we look at FinOps, I show you now two options that we see at companies. So one is our approach with the Cloud Mentor. The first is a bit over-exaggerated, but maybe you will find yourself in it. So the classic way how you do this, first of all, you need strategy slides. Strategy slides are very important. And then you start with the success stories. So you look for where did we save a lot of money in our cloud? Where did it work out? And you propose those success stories. Then the tool, today we heard Excel is gone, I heard somewhere in the future, but Excel is still a big tool in this. So you list all of the cloud accounts, all of the costs, the responsible people, and they need to report something. This, they must free a lot of capacity, and there are still people who avoid this change for sure. And then after some time, we just order a savings plan for 3 years, and 3 years later we have to look at it again. So this is a high manual effort, and also it's like a single effort. It's not really integrated. So what I told you about the FinOps approach that is integrated, this is more of like the book. This is more like what's happening in the real life. So we thought about, okay, how can we automate a part of this? And this is how we came up with the second way. So in April 2024, we have launched the Cloud Mentor, as we call it, for a 12-month phase. So it's still running, and we use it internally, and we also use it at some customers that we have, where we have projects. For example, we give it to our developers. So how does it work? Well, first of all, the Cloud Mentor is basically like your cloud solution architect or your cloud helper. It's a software, and it runs in your cloud account. It does not run as a service or somewhere, so it does not extract data from your cloud account. It runs in your cloud account. And what it does, as a person would do, it would look at your cloud landscape. So what's going on there? Are there services? What kind of services are they? Which quality of services given? And what's happening here? And then we extract the telemetry data. So how much CPU is used, how much RAM and stuff. Also, how long is data stored, or how much? And we do this for AWS and Azure services. Not for all, but for the most important ones, like 10 or 15 services each. So when we do this, we query data of the last 90 days or more. And as you can imagine, in a medium-scaled account, this gives us millions of lines back, and it's very hard to distinguish what's happening here. So what we came up with, not really GenAI, but a classic AI, as I say, we just put in our know-how. Those are rules, basically. In a simple way, I say it's rules. And those rules are our know-how in the cloud business about those services, how we can optimize those services. And then we use those millions of lines that we have and process it. And after this, we have findings, and those are around 100 findings, maybe, or less. And then GenAI comes to the help, because those findings are very technical. So like your CPU is 600 out of 1,200 times too low or something. So it's really hard to read. So what we do then is we use GenAI, because it has really the catalog of the cloud providers in its belly. It is trained on data in the internet, so the data of the cloud providers is public. So it's pretty much everything there. And we have a prompt engineered and give those findings that we have, and then we get recommendations. And those are the potential cost savings that are then analyzed for the cloud landscape. So this is really a bottom-up approach. It's not a strategy approach that you go from up and you see, okay, I have 10 million euros in cloud, I could save 2 million. There are other tools that can do this at some point. Our tool is more, it's for the teams. It's a scalable approach. So if I have 100 dev teams, I give this to every dev team. And they need to use it and then apply those recommendations, or they need at least say why it does not make sense for those recommendations. So even when we look at the classic way versus the Cloud Mentor, we see we save up to 80% of analysis time per account, because usually someone needs to do everything that the Cloud Mentor does in person, and it takes maybe a day or something, and we save, at least already here, a lot of time. And I will show you now a demo how this basically works. This is an application like ChatGPT. It looks a bit like this, but you can also use it in a way that we trigger it from outside and push the message to Teams or email or something. So it all starts with the conversation. So a conversation wraps this up, we give it a name, and then we select the subscription. This here is Azure that we want to analyze. And after this, we need to select the region where we want to do this and select the resources by tag or by resource group that we want to look at it now. Then afterwards, we create a context. This context has a name and gives us some idea about what the resources are. So what's the purpose of it? Is it development or integration? Is it, for example, the part, what kind of architecture is it? Then we look at the operating time. We can say, okay, the system is usually in place from Monday to Friday from 8 to 5 or something. And once we have created this, we come up with the summary, and then when we click confirm, we query all the data. So here I cut the part about the loading. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes, but this is then the result as we get it. So what we see, we also query the cost, and then when we have the cost, we order those recommendations. The ones that give us the most savings are on top. So here in this example, we see that there is an Azure SQL database. You also get the identifier that is used in the cloud. You get the recommendation, a rationale, and also the estimated cost saving. So the team can then review this, for example, and look at it if it makes sense. And what they also can do in this application, they can also challenge this, because as you know from ChatGPT and those LLM technologies, we have now all of this information in the context of the LLM. So I can ask, for example, about storage accounts or about this database. And this also makes possible to do some knowledge transfer here, to do some skilling, because we can here ask directly questions about my specific cloud account, and I get the knowledge from the GenAI model to the developers. So when we now look at the implementation, how we did it, basically we used a centralized approach as in FinOps. So we gave each team we gave each team a Cloud Mentor account or instance, and we trigger those checks, for example, monthly or weekly. And the teams then get the recommendations via Microsoft Teams in their channel, in their developer channel. And also those, for our company where we use it, we have a lot of teams that do managed service for customers. So they are not really into this development stuff. So for them, this is very handy because they don't know all services, for example, and they can use this. So by using this approach, we also make sure that you can really scale at a point. So I had talks with customers. For example, we have one customer, he has like 60 of those teams. And for him, he just gets a number of cloud cost, and he does not know what happens inside his organization, and he does not know what those teams can do. So for him, it's like he triggers now those checks. He gets these recommendations. We also can get what kind of recommendation the team got. And then we get estimation what would be possible. And we can also, the teams can also say it's not possible, but then they have to give a reason for that. So our accomplishments, we use this regularly with 21 of our own cloud accounts. So most of them is AWS. And we identified here saving potentials between 5 and 30% per account. In the end, we saved till now, I think 20% overall, while the traffic on the systems was pretty consistent. So the traffic did not go down or something, it was persistent, the usage. So by just using different service types and service quality types. So our next steps, where we want to go, well, we are tech people, so we don't have a central dashboard. So we need to build a central dashboard for this to show our CEO what's happening in his organization. And we do not have a GCP integration right now, and this is something we are working on. Okay, thank you.